Hi, I'm Mark from ProFit Personal Training in Liverpool. Now we're going to be working with the XtremeSTORM team during the next few months to provide you with some training advice for this unique event. Now the training advice is from us is going to take the form of a video, which is going to be part of your newsletter that you're going to be getting every 2 weeks. Okay, the first thing I want to cover is that I appreciate with this kind of event that a lot of you are going to be what I'd class as hardcore, kind of hardcore athletes that have done these kind of events before, well aware of kind of what training that you need to be doing that's going to be beneficial for this kind of event. But I also want to get the point across that there is going to be some people that may not have done this kind of event before, that may be even using this as a goal, to get themselves fit, get themselves motivated to start training. So, with our advice, what I'm going to try and do is kind of cater for everyone. So the advice is going to come in the form of some quite sort of global sort of training concepts, just general sort of ways of getting fit and training for this kind of event. But also, it's going to take the form of some quite specific training for the event. And by specific, what I mean is that as the obstacles are being revealed here over the next few months, then we'll tailor some training and some exercises that are going to help you on those events and maybe complement the training that you're already doing. What I'll also be trying to do is that if any of you've got any specific queries about your own training, about the training for the event or anything like that, I'm going to try and answer that. And we're going to provide you with an email address at the end of this video for you to contact me, and I'm going to try and answer those queries personally, kind of to each person if I can, or if it's kind of a common theme that we're getting a lot of questions about, then as part of the next instalment of the video, I will, I'll cover that. Okay, so now it's time to move on to the main part of the video that we're doing today. Now, what we're going to be talking about is the components of fitness, and which is particularly relevant to this kind of event. And the reason why this kind of event is so challenging is it's not just working on one particular aspect of fitness. For instance, you're running 18 kilometres. That alone, for a lot of people, they may consider that challenging. So we're talking about 11 miles, which is just under the distance for a half marathon. As well as that, along that route, there's going to be some obstacles, and from what I believe, some of them are going to be pretty extreme. So that they're going to be challenging in different ways. So it's really important that your training reflects the event, and we're not just kind of a sort of one-trick pony, just sort of doing the same training over and over and over again. So that's why I'm going to talk about the components of fitness. So the components that make up the whole sort of fitness picture as follows. First of all, there's the aerobic side of fitness. Now, aerobic is classed as sort of endurance training. A good example of aerobic fitness would be something like jogging. So we're talking about kind of the lower intensity type training, and it's generally going to be jogging for sort of extended periods. Now, that's obviously going to be applicable for you doing this, first of all, because it's going to be a long event, okay? So the aerobic element of your training needs to be covered. But as well as that, with some of the obstacles, it's going to require short bursts of energy. So we're going to have to be talking about the anaerobic aspect of your training. Now, as I already sort of mentioned, this is your short burst, your short burst component of your fitness. It will be something like sprinting. Generally it's going to be sort of for less than 10 seconds, and we're talking about maximum effort here. We're not just talking about like a fast jog. So that's going to be quite important, particularly for some of the obstacles like the climbing obstacles and things like that. The anaerobic aspect of your training is going to be quite important. Okay, so we're going to break things down a little further now, and this is more leaning now towards the sort of resistance element of your training. Okay, so what we're going to be covering now is the more sort of resistance-based components of your training. First one being muscular endurance. Now, this is the kind of training that I believe that most people are familiar with. What we're talking about is low intensity, high volume training. We're specifically talking about like these what we class as like sub-maximal contraction. So it's not, you know, all-out force on an exercise. So for muscular endurance training, which is going to be a big part of what you're going to be training for, I'll give you the parameters to work within. So what we're looking at is at least 15 repetitions of an exercise. For those of you unaware, what I mean by repetition is that it's one repetition will be one exercise. 15 repetitions will be 15 times through the same exercise. So above 15 repetitions of an exerise. At 50 to 75% of your 1 rep max. Now I appreciate again a lot of you will be familiar with what one rep max is, and for those who know what their 1 rep max is, then you want to be aiming 15 to 75%. For those who don't, a good sort of another way of looking at it would be that, or less technical way of looking at it would be that what we're after with endurance training is more of an accumulative fatigue. So by the later stages of the set, so let's say we're doing 15 repetitions, by that sort of, maybe 11th, 12th repetition, the exercise is going to be starting to become, a little bit more difficult. You're going to be finding those last few repetitions pretty hard. Okay, and we want to be doing 3 to 6 sets of each exercise. Now I'm going to attach a table to the bottom of this, onto this email, which is going to kind of give you a bit more visual sort of reference to this. Okay, but an example of muscular endurance in kind of day to day would be walking up a flight of stairs, or a few flights of stairs. Again, jogging, something like skiing, particularly this time of year, again that would require muscular endurance. So it's a lot of repetitions with a low resistance. So the next thing we're going to talk about is muscular strength. Now, what we're talking about muscular strength is basically maximal force training. So as opposed to muscular endurance, we're talking about high intensity, low volume training. So essentially it's moving heavy objects. So for this kind of training, repetitions, we're looking at around 4 to 8 repetitions per exercise or per set. And for the sets, we're looking around 3 to 5 sets. You should be working around 80 to 90% of your 1 rep max for these exercises. So like I said, high intensity, low volume, so not many repetitions, but you're going to be pushing really hard while you're doing the exercise. So next thing we're going to be talking about is power training. What we're talking about with power training is strength at speed, so explosive strength. So examples of which would be sprinting, so this would be a flat out sprint, generally for no longer than 10 seconds. Jumping, vertical jumps, or a kind of day-to-day example would be sprinting up a flight of stairs. So for training for this, what we're looking at is around 2 to 5 repetitions and 3 to 5 sets per exercise. Again, it's not about training to fatigue, this is about training, trying to train in speed. So I'm not going to go into 1 rep maxes for this. There is kind of different aspects to this. For the power training we'll be doing, we'll generally be using plyometric body weight exercises for when we're training power. Okay, so we spoke about all the components that make up someone's fitness. All those components will be put together into what's known as a training cycle, and I'm going to attach an example of a training cycle to this newsletter. So, conclusion really being that in order to complete, and it maybe even kind of, completely annihilate this this obstacle course, you need to be training all these components within your training program. So, I'll see you again in a couple of weeks.